Welcome to tonight's Tanya class. We are studying chapter 15, which in Hebrew is called Perez. And today we're going to learn about the Beinoni, which we've been discussing the last few weeks. Specifically, the Beinoni with a special title. And the special title we're going to learn today is about a Beinoni that's a Oved Elokim, Oved with an ayin, which means he serves God. In other words, up until now, what we learned was, what's the status of a Beinoni, in terms of a tzaddik, a rasha, and a Beinoni, the intermediate, which basically was that a Beinoni is somebody that in thought, speech, and action, he's 100%. All his thoughts about God, all his talk is godly, all his actions are godly, he never transgressed, etc. He's not a tzaddik because he still has his evil inclination still alive and waiting to take over. He's not a rasha because he doesn't sin, so he gets the status of a Beinoni. That was what we learned about the status of the Beinoni. Then we discussed and learned about that every single person could be a Beinoni. It's not earth-shattering, and it's not like this, impossible task to be a Beinoni, because every person, whether you're in the mood or not in the mood, you can still behave and not transgress. You can still choose to speak positively and kindly and hopefully and peacefully, etc. And you can choose to have all positive and holy and beautiful thoughts. That's what we discussed till now. Today, the Alter Rebbe is going to introduce a very, very important concept, and that is as follows. So, in other words, because we learned that the Beinoni is someone that in his thought, speech, and action is on par, so what happens now? That's it. He just acts, he's almost like a robot. In other words, he doesn't do what he's not supposed to, he says what he's supposed to, he doesn't say what he's not supposed to, he thinks what he's supposed to think, and not what he's not supposed to think. But inside, there's still that animal soul that's trying to take over. So if we didn't have today's class, chapter 15, okay, so you have like a, something that an illness that's so to speak maintained, but it's not obliterated. So here the author comes and says, no. There's something which is called an Oved Elokim, a Beinoni that serves God. And what is a Beinoni that serves God? So he bases it on a verse in the prophets Malachi, that the prophet says there as follows. You should you should give a look and see the difference between tzaddik v'rasha, a righteous person and a wicked person, between Oved Elokim, someone that serves God, and someone that does not serve God. So you see, he puts in 4 classifications: tzaddik, rasha, Oved Elokim, and someone doesn't serve God. So what does that mean? If he's a tzaddik, for sure he serves God, and if he's a rasha, he for sure doesn't serve God. So is a Oved Elokim a description? What are you in the description for? We know what a tzaddik is. We know what a rasha is. So the author says no. The prophet is speaking about the tzaddik, the rasha, and the Oved Elokim, and the one that doesn't serve God is 2 levels of the Beinoni. 2 levels of the Beinoni. In other words, like this. There's 1 level of the Beinoni, which is an Oved Elokim. He serves God. Now, what does that mean, he serves God? So that means as follows. Again, the fact that all his thoughts are good, and all his speech is good, and all his actions good, that is the status of the Beinoni. That's the Beinoni. Here we're saying you can have like a star, a crown on top of the head of the Beinoni, when he is also, besides the regular Beinoni, which he's complete in thought, speech, and action, he is someone that's an Oved Elokim. What does Oved mean? Oved means work. Work. Now, what does it mean, work? So the author explains what the concept of work means as follows. And he says like this. Here you have a Beinoni. Good, he's batting, he's getting all checks. But his animal soul is strong and mighty and waiting to take over and gives him a hard time to obviously stay in line, but he's not doing anything to diffuse the animal soul. So comes along today in chapter 15, the Alter says, you have an opportunity to take that animal soul within you and diffuse him and weaken him. If you get rid of it totally, that's a tzaddik. That's a whole different level. If you're able to get rid of the animal soul, that's a righteous man. But if you're able to weaken it or soften it, which is a constant battle, but as long as you're working on weakening and softening it, that it's not as strong as it normally would be, then you're going under the category of Oved Hashem, you're serving God. Now, why is it called serving God? Because this is real hard work. Why is it real hard work? Because there's something which is called behavioral, and the basic Beinoni is behavioral. He controls his actions, which, whether you're in the mood of behaving, you behave. He controls his mouth. That means whether you're in the mood of saying what you want to say, or you just want to lash out and you control what you want to say, okay, and you control your thoughts, that's not major work. That's behavioral, controlling your behaviors. Work, as the author explains, is called Avoda Pnimis. When a person, Pnimi means internal, when a person works on his internal gifts and abilities, now we're talking Avoda. When a person goes to what? What's your internal attributes? So, for example, your emotions. What are your emotions? So we know there's 7 in total, but generally speaking there's 2. Chesed and Gvura, which basically is Ava and Yira, love and awe in God. So the question is very, very simple. The Beinoni, as we discussed several weeks ago, the tzaddik's love for God is like 100%. And therefore, there's no animal soul there. At 100% love for God, there's no room for anything else. There's no love for anything else. No love for anything materialistic or anything physically enjoyable. He wants to have a relationship with God, and that's a greater joy. Obviously, the Rasha has zero interest in God. The Beinoni is already somebody that, again, the godly soul has its love for God, but the animal soul is also excited about life. But he controls himself in action. So Avoda Pnimis means that you're going to try to work on hard. Avoda means work. If you're working and you're not breaking a sweat in a workout, if you're working out and you're not breaking a sweat, are you really working out? That's like a walk in the park. So Avoda means you're breaking a sweat. You're going to break a sweat and fight the animal soul of yours to the point where it's real Avoda. What does that mean practically? That you're going to create in the animal soul that has zero interest in having a love for God. He loves to eat, he loves to drink, he loves to do whatever is enjoyable for his own self. But you're going to create a love in the animal soul, in the nefesh of Bahamas, that he should want to love God, that he loves God. And if and when you're able to go against the animal soul's natural instinct to love itself and to love what it thinks is enjoyable, and you're able to, so to speak, transform the animal soul where it loves God, now you're talking Avoda. Now you're talking work. So when a Beinoni goes ahead and says, thank God we got the behaviors under control. We do all the right things. We say all the right things. We think all the right things. Wonderful. That's great. That's wonderful. But let's talk about now your animal soul. Does your animal soul feel love for God? It doesn't. And that's why it's bothering you. For this thing and that. If we're able to create that your animal soul should have a love for God, and there's still going to be an animal soul. The tzaddik, but there's no more animal soul anymore. It's obliterated. But the Beinoni means you have an animal soul, but this animal soul is going to have a love for God. If and when you're able to do that, that's called Avoda. So obviously, how do you do that? Isn't that a great thing to take your animal soul? Wouldn't that be a nice thing that your animal soul say, I love God. I love God, right?
Doesn't the animal soul love God as well?
I agree, but the question is you have to educate it, you have to inspire it, you have to direct it, you have to help it. So the question is, how do you go about doing that? So here the author is going to explain today in chapter 15 a method and technique how you could work on your animal soul. And the author explains as follows. There's something which is called, we all know, parents. What's parents? A husband and wife, right? And when parents create a union, and it's a healthy union, guess what happens? Children come out. Isn't that an amazing thing? Two parents get together and children come out. What does that mean? That's a natural thing God created in the world. When parents, mother and father, get together in a healthy way, in a spiritual way, in a godly way, etc., children come about. So in other words, are the children, do you create, you create children? No. You create a union between husband and wife, between parents, and children happen. So in other words, if you want to create a love for God, you don't say, okay, I love God. No. Love for God is a byproduct of what? Of the parents getting together. Who are the parents? Who are the parents that are creating that love for God? And the answer is, in Kabbalah, what's father and mother? Chachma and Bina. Chachma is father, Bina is mother, right? Because Chachma is the ideas, the flashing ideas, like the father produces the seed, and Bina is the development of it. That's the mother. She nurtures it, develops it. It's in the womb for 9 months, and so on and so forth. So the process between father and mother create the children. The same thing also, the process between Chachma and Bina will create the emotions, the love, and all for God. So in other words, Alter Rebbe says, you take that analogy, which is a real practical application of it, and you get up in the morning. What do you do in the morning? You daven to Hashem. First you wash Negel Wasser, and then you say Moda'ani, you wash Negel Wasser, and then you get up to pray, right? Now what happens when you pray? So let's define what prayer means. Prayer could mean you take a prayer book and you read words. That's called reading words. That's not prayer. That's reading words of the prayer book. What is prayer? Prayer actually in Hebrew is called Avoda Satfila, the work of prayer. What is the goal of prayer? The goal of prayer is when you read the prayers, before you get the feeling, you read the prayers. Well, eventually you get to it, but you have to get there, right? You read the prayers, and if you think about it, then you start thinking about the prayers. What is the message behind all the prayers?
Love and awe of God.
You're jumping.
Oh, I'm jumping.
You're jumping, and that's fine. Yes.
You're prayer jumping.
Connect where?
You want to connect.
Okay. Yes. But how are you connecting? This is going to be meditation 101, prayer 101, right? What happens when you pray? What happens when you pray?
You feel
So
gratitude to God.
You're
jumping to the
I'm
gratitude.
jumping
You're
again.
jumping to the children. It takes 9 months. It takes
quite a bit.
It takes 9 months to produce a child. You're like popping them out, right? Your gratitude is great. I agree, but it's a process, right? What is a process?
From down to up, we do the connection. We try to do the connection.
What do you mean down to up?
I am down in the earth, and I try.
I understand, but again, you're going to pray, right? You're reading the prayers, right? What is the essence of all the prayers? What is the essence? If you read the prayers and you think about what you're reading, what you're really thinking about is the greatness of God. Read every prayer, whether it's a blessing, right? Or it's a psalm, or it's a different prayer. What are you thinking? What is the prayer describing? How great God is, right? God created this, and all the trees, and all this waters, and all the angels, and right? All throughout the prayer, it's all about what? How great God is.
No,
you're jumping to the awe.
I'm jumping again. I thought you said He's great. We have awe.
No, but you're jumping. First we have to meditate a little. First we have to meditate a little. We have to get there. Holiness is one step at a time. I know you're excited. We're all excited. But before we get excited, we got to know what we're excited about. So you're correct. But I don't want to miss the first step.
Missing steps.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the first step is you got to say the words, and you got to think the words, and you'll read the words. The words are all talking about, from many different angles, about the greatness of God. This is just data so far. Right, we have data. What's the data? How great God is. How great God is. Now, as you start thinking, let's not get to the emotions yet. As you start thinking about how great God is, and you think more of how great God is, and you think even more of how great God is, and you're like literally your mind lights up. You ever have your mind lights up? Oh, I see it. I got it intellectually. We're not talking emotionally yet. Wow, God created this and God creates that and He maintains the world. And and you say the prayers, you read them, you think about what you're saying, Hebrew, English, whichever one you understand, and you really think about this great, awesome God. And you start going, oh my gosh, this is beyond belief. It's if you go out to a beautiful scenery, the Grand Canyon or whatever, any place of nature, and now if your eyes are closed, you don't get excited, right? But if your eyes are opened and you see it and you start thinking about this, whoa, who made this? I mean, you have to make one small thing, it's like a whole big production. God made all this whole amazing world, and the skies and the waters, right? So you start going, oh my gosh, I love this guy. I love this God. So the love comes as a byproduct of what? Of real meditation. And then you're almost in awe of this God. Oh my gosh, He's very powerful. And you become in awe. Not afraid, but in awe. Yira means awe. So in other words, the Alter Rebbe says when a person goes ahead, when do you do this? By prayer. That's the purpose of prayer service. Now you pray Shacharis in the morning, Mincha in the afternoon, Ma'ariv in the evening. Or if you say, let's say the Shema before you go to bed, or before you eat something, you make a blessing, or after you eat something, or when you go to the restroom when you come out, or throughout the day if you're doing another mitzvah, and so on and so on. So what's the purpose of every single mitzvah? It's to stop. It's to think about this great God, right? Think about any blessing. Baruch Atah Hashem, you're blessing God, the King of the world. It's words, or do you actually think for a moment? He's not the king of a town, a country, or the king of the world.
Awareness of His creation.
Exactly, very good. I like that.
That's
Awareness.
What you're saying.
There you go.
Finally.
You got it. Bingo. So you're aware of His creation, of His recreation, of His powers, of His infinite abilities, and we're finite. So as you become more and more aware, and as you meditate more and more of the greatness of God during the prayer service, all of a sudden you create this love for God. This feeling, now the feelings kick in. Not feeling just kicked in without thinking, but you basically pushed or forced or inspired the emotion. You inspired the child to come out. The child meaning love, or the child meaning awe of God. How? In Hebrew it's called hisbonenut, which means in English meditation, being aware, whatever the term you want to use. So as you practice hisbonenus, what happens now? Who gets excited and has love and awe for God? Only the godly soul? No, the godly soul doesn't need that. The godly soul is one with God. The animal soul gets excited. Oh my gosh, can you imagine the animal soul is getting excited about God? Well, listen, thank you, because you inspired him. You helped him meditate. So what happens now? Now the animal soul is inspired. Now when is this? During davening. During prayer, because you're doing active meditation, which creates the inspiration of the emotions. So obviously, during prayer service, or especially in the middle of prayer service, your emotions, the love and awe of God is at a peak. It's at a peak. A great peak. The peak of what? Whoa! What happens after the prayer service? Yeah, it dies. Not totally, it dies down. It starts diminishing. But throughout the day, there is some kind of residue. We're not stupid. We remember more or less about the inspiration. I mean, it creates it still remains some kind of effect. So it's in our memory, not maybe actively 100% power, but it's whatever percentage, whether it's 80, 50, 30, 20, even 10% memory of love for God. So now what happens throughout the day? Not only are you a Beinoni in action and in thought and in speech, but you also did Avoda, the prayer service Avoda, that created within you that you still have the fire. The fire means there's a love and awe for God. So not only during the prayer service, but throughout the day, that fire remains within you. So the Alter Rebbe says that is called an Oved Elokim. Why? Because he proactively, through his prayer and through his meditation, he created that his animal soul should be inspired to have love and awe for God. That was hard work. You think prayer service is easy? No, most people don't want to do it. Or most people just find, a bridge version just to say they prayed. Prayer service is not meant to be easy. How could it be easy when you have an animal soul you're trying to tame? It's like trying to discipline or train an untrained wild dog, a wild animal. Right? It doesn't be only a dog. Try to train an untrained wild animal. You think it's easy? No. Sometimes you even get bit by the animal, right? There's cases in Miami where they bit the trainers, they swallow the trainers, right? So we each have a wild animal within us. We do. We each have, wake up, we each have a wild animal within us.
And we bite.
And we bite, absolutely. So we each have a wild animal within us, and this wild animal wants to be wild, because its natural thing is to be wild, and our job is to train it. You think that's easy? No, not easy at all. So so that's why it's called Avoda. It's work. It's work to train that animal. You can give in to the animal, you can let the animal run your life, you don't have to work, but guess what? Who's running your life? The animal. What kind of life is that?
But I love that throughout the day the fire remains within you.
Absolutely. If you do the work.
I love that.
If you do the work, the fire will remain in you throughout the day. Okay. So when a person does that avoda, now he's called what? An Oved Elokim. So in other words, you see clearly what the author was saying is that Oved means that you're working, you're breaking a sweat, you created something which didn't exist before. Because till now you had an animal that was wild, undisciplined, untrained, and now, whoa, he's like excited about God. He never had it before. And not only is he excited when you're doing the meditation, it even has some effect on him. It has like a residual effect on him, right? And guess what? Next prayer service starts again. And you keep on slowly training him, her, whatever, the animal soul, just like you would train any animal. 100% the same exact way. Now, so when a person does that and continues to do that, what are you called? You're called an Oved Elokim. Now, so if you do that, you're a Beinoni, which is an Oved Elokim. What happens if you don't do the Oved Elokim? Then you're a Beinoni, but you're not considered someone that serves God. Now, the author brings out another important point, and that is as follows. What happens if somebody, we know that God created everyone with different personalities and different temperaments. So what happens if, for example, you naturally love praying? You like praying. You enjoy praying. You enjoy studying Torah. You enjoy doing mitzvot. You enjoy it. So the author says, even though you're enjoying it, it's great. You're a Beinoni, but you're not one that's serving God. Serving God means that you're breaking the habit. In other words, here's an analogy. He says, for example, in the days of the Talmud, it was customary. Listen to this. It was customary to study every piece of Talmud you studied 100 times. 100 times. Can you imagine? So you read it, and you studied it again, and again, 100 times. That was normal. That was standard procedure. That's why they knew the Talmud by heart, most people, right, those days. But what if someone did it 101? Oh, no, I can do 100. 101, that's it. No, you're pushing it, right? You're pushing it. 101, you're pushing it. I mean, if you think about it, if you did already 100, what's the big deal, 101? But, there's a breaking point. The breaking point is 101. So the Talmud said, somebody studies Talmud 100 times. Okay, very nice. Nice student like everyone else. 100 times. No, we're giving him a nice like everyone else. Good, right? He gets a check. Someone does 101. Whoa, he won like the big lottery. Why? Because the answer is very simple. Because even if you did it 90, so what? Everyone does 100. You did 100, everyone does 100. You did 101. Now already you're going against your nature. You're going against your nature. So the same thing the author says like this. When a person goes against the nature, it means if your nature is to study, and your nature is to pray, and your nature is to do mitzvot, you also have a breaking point. Where you'll only study up until here. Or you'll only pray up until here. Or you'll only do mitzvah. Everyone has a limit, because by definition, because we're finite human beings, as great as we advance ourselves, we all have a breaking point. Right? Like, we love Shabbos, right? But the minute Shabbos is over, okay, Havdalah, we got to go. Hold on. That's your breaking point. If you can keep Shabbos an extra 5 minutes, now that's called an Oved. Why? Because you're saying, yeah, I know Shabbos is over, and everyone's leaving, but you know what? let's give it an extra 5 minutes. It's called actually toast for Shabbos. You're adding the Shabbat. Or, for example, let's say, you're used to saying, for example, 10 pages in the prayer book, and let's say your concentration level, let's say from 1 to 10 is at 2. And tomorrow, instead of reading 10 pages, you're going to read 11 pages. And instead of concentrating on level 1 to 10 as 2, you're going to go to 3. Wow. Now you're doing Avoda. Obviously, if you're on level 6, going to 3 is not doing anything. The point is, whatever level of concentration you're at, whatever level quantitative exercises you do, push the bar, ooh, now we're talking Avoda. As long as you're within your bar, there's no Avoda there. That is an Oved Elokim. Now, there is another way to inspire your animal soul to love God, but also it's not considered Oved Elokim, but I'm going to explain to you what it is. And that is as follows. The Alter Rebbe says that every single person has within them a hidden love for God. We all have a hidden love. God created us, so we have a natural hidden love for God. So let's say, for example, I'm like the level of a Beinoni. Thought, speech, and action, I'm doing amazing, right? But I don't have the love. So I can say, hold on a second. God created me. You connect to your hidden love, and all of a sudden that comes out, right? And now your animal soul loves God. That's great. You got your animal soul to love God. But there's no work there. Because you called in something which you already have. You didn't create anything. By the way, it's a good thing to do. It's like the emergency switch. You know what? You're not feeling the love? Say, what do you mean, not feeling the love? God created me.
You didn't go beyond your limit.
No, right. But I have that love within, and you can bring it out. So it's a great thing to know, to pull out love, because you always want to be in love with God. Here we're saying is that ultimately what's real Avoda, when you go beyond your limits, you create the love. Just like you create that child. How do you create that love? How do you create that awe? By meditation. By his bonanut. And by the way, you don't have to do it during prayer service also. You can do it anytime throughout the day. You stop and say, you know what? I want to be inspired. Enough of living, this life of, just functioning and feeding myself and just moving from one step and next step and not really living. Let's really take a moment, right? And look around and see, oh my gosh, look how great God is, right? He created ourselves. He created this beautiful world. He gave us oxygen. He gave us water. He gave us everything. I mean, he's creating all this stuff. And you create this, you talk about how great God is. And all of a sudden you go, you know what? I love this God. I mean, think about it. He didn't have to do this all for me. I'm in awe of him. Oh my gosh, I can't do this type of stuff. Now, what do? You create in your animal soul a love for God. The more you do that, your animal soul gets now excited. So it's literally creating. You're creating what? Real love that didn't exist before. You're creating real awe that didn't exist. As you create that, what are you doing? You're taking your Beinoni level to a level of serving God. Whole different category. So in other words, this chapter in Tanya is extremely important. As we always discussed, every single chapter in Tanya is like a foundation of mysticism. That this chapter is extremely important. The reason why it's so important is because this takes you out. You can get stuck into being robotic. That's number one. So this brings you out to be a real person. That you're not just a robot. B, you have the power to fire up your animal soul. And he gives you simple technique, which, if you go to modern meditation, they all take it from here. Simple technique of meditation, but meditation that not just meditation that's out there, but it's real meditation that creates results. What's the results it creates? It creates within you a real love. It fires up an emotion that didn't exist. That emotion never existed. You literally created something from nothing by meditating. You created the love for God, and you created the awe of God. I mean, isn't that great that you have the power to create?
Yeah.
And that's basically what's called an Oved Elokim. And this chapter 15, really teaches you such a powerful thing, how to be able to become from a regular Beinoni, which let's hope we're all at that level, right? We're going to obviously hope for higher, which obviously we keep thought, speech, and action up to the fullest. But more importantly, we work on being what? An Oved Elokim, someone that serves God. And by serving God, We literally have to work on ourselves to go against the grain, but when we go against the grain, we will create real emotions that will be fired up with a love and awe for God, that will give us true energy of joy and happiness and fulfillment in all areas of our life.